Hi, glad you're here for the second story of Inside My Tent series. And I'm glad I'm here because yesterday, on our way back down the mountain from the White Mountains into the valley, we had a really close call when a pickup truck pulling a trailer lost his tailgate and it came flying across the road into our path. And with Janet's excellent driving and braking ability and keeping control of the car, we got safely through that incident. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. And let's get on with the next story. Well, my story starts out on an ordinary camping day with my brother and sister-in-law, Janet. And let me just show you a quick clip of what ordinary looked like at the beginning of this trip. This is gorgeous. Now, there's Valerie's little tent. There's our kitchen. I did so. Camping 101. We're caught out in the rain and we were good enough to get our tarp up before it started. It's been raining about an hour. And here's our campfire. I wanted to show you this. We're out in the wilderness, so brother found a hollow log that he put over the campfire, and it kept the integrity of our fire going for over an hour. And this is the story of how our fun weekend turned into an absolute fiasco, and how I was saved by my superhero, Janet. So we're camping on the Mogollon Rim, quite close to Forest Road 300. And the first day was absolutely wonderful. It was the second morning that after breakfast we decided to go hiking. And I just didn't feel right. I wasn't sick to my stomach. I didn't have a severe headache, but I felt lightheaded. And I said to Chuck and Janet that I wanted to stay at camp. Just go. I didn't think I could keep up to them when they were hiking. After I convinced them that I could stay home, they wanted me to drop them off at the point where they would go down into the ravine and begin their hike at the bottom of the ravine that would curve around and bring them back close enough to the campground that they would be back in 2 hours. And without explaining that I was feeling disorientated, I asked them to turn the vehicle around for me and head it in the right direction back to camp. So they merrily did that. Chuck thought maybe I was scared I was going to run into some stump or something when I was turning it around. Unfortunately, when Chuck and Janet got back to camp over 2 hours later, their vehicle was not there, I was not there, and their dog wasn't there either. The puppy happened to be in the back seat of the vehicle that I was in. I had a brain malfunction and I just kept driving. I didn't recognize my camp spot. I didn't know which way I should turn. There just was road after road and I kept moving. There were a lot of fire roads that I had never been on before, and I just kept driving and driving and driving. When you realize you're not thinking properly, you get upset. And I was so worried and frustrated because I did know that somebody was waiting for me back at camp. And that was just made me even more distressed. I was also in tears when I remembered there were directions on my phone from the highway to the camp spot, and I could see the words, but I couldn't interpret what they were. And I think that was even worse than not having any directions because they were absolutely useless for me. I finally came across 2 young men sitting beside their motorcycles on the ground eating lunch, eating a picnic lunch or a bagged lunch. And I told them I was lost, and I kind of explained that what my tent looked like and what the camp looked like. And the 2 young men said that they would find it, that they would go up and down the roads until they found the camp if I could just stay where I was. After a while, one of the guys came back and said how sorry he was, but his buddy had run out of gas and he needed to get help, find somebody with a pickup to pick up their motorcycle and rescue themselves. So they wished me good luck, and off he went. So I was back on to looking for the campsite myself. I still thought about how upset they would be back at camp. I had been gone for hours and hours and hours. The shadows were getting long, so it was getting close to evening, and there was no way to contact them because we don't have cell phone tower, or didn't have cell phone reception where we were camping. And I just kept driving, sometimes turning left, sometimes turning right, sometimes making a circle, just turning on the side of the road and going back a different direction, but I kept driving. And finally, I came to an intersection where there was a white car coming from the left of me. I flagged them down and talked to them. They hadn't seen my tent. They didn't know what I was talking about. They had been further up on the Rim Road, and they apologized that they couldn't stop because they had to get back to Phoenix. It was getting evening, but they wanted me to get in the car with them, and they would take me to the closest town, to the police station or forestry or someone who could help me. And I refused. I didn't want to go with them. Well, as an alternative, they gave me some extra water and a bag of trail mix and wished me well, and said that they would stop and notify the authorities when they got to the next town that there was someone lost in the forest. The temperature had already cooled, so I had rolled my window down, and I was stopped at an intersection trying to figure out whether to go left or right or what to do when I heard a sound that caught my attention. And I looked back behind me, and there in the distance, standing on the road, was Janet, my sister-in-law, yelling my name and waving her arms overhead. Well, she got into her own vehicle and drove us back to camp. When we were talking about what happened, they thought that I had slipped over off the road and into the canyon below. So that's, they couldn't figure out any other explanation. All that evening, Brother Chuck kept saying he would tie me to a tree if he had to let me out of his sight. And he made us a lovely supper, and then we sat and had a couple of stiff drinks, 1 or 2 stiff drinks before we all headed to bed early, just from nervous exhaustion. The next morning I was back, all of me, body, mind, and spirit, and we enjoyed a great breakfast and a good hike before we packed up, and I folded my tent and headed back down the mountain. Oh yeah, not before the forest ranger showed up at our campsite and verified that it was me he was speaking to, and that I was safe and sound, and that he could call off the search for the girl who was missing on the mountain. I just want to add that Janet walked over 12 miles that day. She walked for a couple of hours. She went back to camp and checked if I was there, and she would go back out over and over again until she found me. Well, I've been talking a lot about my common life with supernatural assistance, but this video was for my common life with all of the super friends and family that have helped me in my through my tough times and have helped celebrate my good times. I honor you. I thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe so we can stay in touch, and stay well.